That's right. Welcome in, welcome back, folks, to another Johnny Boys in Florida recording live about Notre Dame spring football edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, thanks for being here. You can find that program on YouTube. Do it, subscribe if you haven't yet. Give the video a thumbs up. That helps Johnny out as well. Notifications on that way you don't miss nothing. Twitter, search bar Always Irish or at Always Irish Inc. Emails alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Audio only. Anywhere you want it, you could get it. Don't want to see my face? How do you think these golfers feel with me yelling with them trying to putt out? Join the club there. Notre Dame Fighting Irish, brought to you by SI. Read all about it. Patreon.com/Always Irish. He's a former captain. He's a leading tackler. Mike Goolsby and myself, I think he's traveling for work, living out of hotels. I'm in Florida. We're doing live remotes here for the beginning of spring ball. The grind never ends, baby. The grind never ends. And I do got to say this, though. I was listening to Freeman's presser on YouTube or whatever, and I got to tell you, man, it feels good to be doing that by a pool where it's 80 degrees and there's no clouds, and you got a little Miller Lite in your hand. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. I feel like a talk show host, Bob Barker or something with this skinny mic. I'm not used to having to hold the mic without the stand. All right. Just got done watching Freeman's opening presser from spring ball opening. Day one, it's a lot of loosening up your calisthenics and stretching and basic stuff. The main thing today to me was I wanted to see how Freeman handles some of the questions you knew he was going to get, what he was going to say, how he was going to frame it. This has been something I've been looking forward to, and I've said forever, I don't love these pressers because it's a lot of just obvious questions and obvious answers, coach speak. Like, it isn't Freeman specific. I'm talking about overall, like in all of sports. It's rare anymore you get anything really juicy other than coach speak stuff and obvious answers. This spring's different. This spring's different. It has been a challenge for this program since the minute the Ohio State game ended. And all the personnel changes, all the injury recoveries, the quick turnaround here. It's been challenging, and I wanted to see how Freeman was going to frame some of these questions and his experience through this. So I got to admit, in terms of press conferences, I know, like, I'm kind of a media member, like with the SI thing. I just don't. It's not my thing that I get a lot of value out of, but I've been looking forward to this one. So I watched the full presser. What was it, 28 minutes or something? I literally had a notepad out there at the pool, and I just wrote down any of the things that stood out to me, and I want to go over those. And you guys play along in the exercise too. I'm sure a lot of you watched it, and I want to see if you had some of the main takeaways I had. I literally just wrote down anything that stood out to me, wrote a bullet point, and then we'll go over it. Let's get into it. Number one, Freeman has come a long way when it comes to handling these pressers, being at the podium, appearing calm, confident, collected. He just seems way more comfortable doing this State of the Union address, answering questions, whatever. There is a calm confidence to him up there that didn't exist in the beginning of his tenure. And I feel like it's pretty obvious how much more comfortable he is doing this stuff and owning what he says and being comfortable, and not like it used to feel like you felt like he was kind of like hesitant. Do I want to say this? Do I want to say that? Like, there was this little reticence to open up. I just feel like he's way more calm and confident, owning everything up there. And I like that. And I think that's a key sign of the evolution of Freeman in this role, gaining confidence in himself and everything, owning everything. I like where it's headed. He's grown a lot. In this area, he's grown a lot. Number one is he's acknowledged the short turnaround. And that was something asked about. And it's a good question. How is that quick turnaround, short turnaround, handling all that? He was asked, when did you really get to turn the page from 24 to start worrying about 25? He said today. His answer was today, the first day of spring. And he's not lying, because there has been nonstop personnel worries and concerns from the second that plane landed in South Bend after the Ohio State game. I believe him when he says it's almost today. Like, you had to structure spring and figure out some things. But bigger picture, I understand why that was his answer. You couldn't worry about how am I going to structure spring practice for these quarterbacks when you don't have your recruiting operation in place, and you don't have a GM, and you don't have a director of player personnel, and you don't have the recruiting development guy. By the way, MTA coming back to work for the program, like, beautiful to see, but it's like, I don't think he's BSing you when he said today's the first day I've been really able to worry about spring ball. I thought that was a very honest answer when he said today it starts, because I've had too many big picture things to get in place to worry about it. It's got to be a very uncomfortable, awkward place for a guy like Freeman. You come off the physical and emotional grind of the longest Notre Dame season there's ever been. You lose a heartbreaker in the championship to your alma mater and a team that's now beat you 3 times in your 3 years in Notre Dame, by the way. You got an Ohio State problem. And you have all of that, then all the personnel turnover and whatever. Freeman has not had 1 minute to relax or chill out or gather his thoughts or anything. It has been the stressful grind of that playoff run right into having to fill out all these important roles where there's no shortcuts, defensive coordinator, all the recruiting operation. There is, I believe him when he says he hasn't had time till today, because it's been a lot, and it isn't anything you could like half-ass. It's big picture stuff you got to nail. Tough. That's tough, man. And you could say that's why the head coach Notre Dame makes that much money, right? Like to handle all this. But there's been no break. He was also asked, a lot of teams are canceling the spring game, not doing it. Did you have any thought of any of that? And he said, you rethink how you want to structure spring or whatever. But he said, I just see a lot of value in these guys being able to play and the fans getting to see it. And it's not something we're looking at canceling the spring game. Maybe that changes in the future, but that stood out to me. Here's something else I loved. I love this answer by Freeman. He's getting good at this. Shaky early on. He's getting a lot better. He was asked kind of the question that we've been asking and talking about is like, do you have momentum carried over for 24? Do you come into spring with a chip on your shoulder, pissed off because you fell just short? Like, where's the vibe at coming from that end in a short winter window into spring? And what he said is, we need to make sure in 25, we're starting out the program coming from a higher foundation than we did in 24. I think that's a really fair, good way to look at it and a good answer. He's saying we need to take all that success, the lessons learned, the successes we had in stressful do or die playoff situations and all that, even the situation against Ohio State. You got to take whatever momentum there was and the lessons learned so that you're building from a higher starting point than you were the year before. I think that's a pretty fair, good way to look at it. As far as just we need to be starting this off at a higher level of competency to build from, coming off the success we had. I think that's a good way to look at it and needs to be the reality, I hope. So I liked that. Then we get to the quarterbacks. And I even wrote down the timestamp. It was 11 minutes into this Q&A when good old boy Eric Hansen, longtime Notre Dame guy, got to respect it, got to the quarterback question 11 minutes in. I thought it would be the first question or maybe the second question. Number one, I thought would be, how are you handling the quick turnaround between the end of the season and spring and all these injuries? That's a fair number one question because it's all encompassing. I'm a little surprised it took us 11 minutes to get to how are we going to handle this quarterback thing. So Eric Hansen gets to it at 11 minutes in. I thought Freeman gave a great answer. Everybody's going to get reps with the one, open competition. Everybody in a fair, Freeman made sure to say open and fair. Everybody's going to get a shot with the ones, all this kind of stuff. No timetable to name a starter. Fair competition. Everybody's going to rotate with the ones, the twos, the threes, and we're going to set this up as fair as possible. And I love what he said about what you're hoping for is what we've been talking about here is the best possible outcome is one of these guys jumps out of the pack and you don't even really need to announce it. Everybody knows that's your quarterback leader, and one guy is clearly better than the others, and that's going to be your guy. Freeman even brought that up. Like, we're looking not to name a starter. We're looking for a starter to claim the spot. And those are different things. If you have a fairly equal competition through spring and the early part of fall with all three of these guys, and the staff's got to pick one, that's not a good sign. That's not a good sign to me because it's unlikely to me all three of those guys are playing great and perfect football. You need one of these guys to claim this and be head and shoulders above and perform better, and they're the natural leader. That's the way out of this. You don't pick a quarterback. A quarterback claims that spot. And those are two very different things. I thought he handled that pretty well. But 11 minutes in to get to that question, I thought it'd be the second one after how hard is it to handle the quick turnaround and all the injury recoveries. I was a little surprised it took 11 minutes. Here's something else that I liked. They were talking about leadership, a question about leadership and captains and that kind of stuff. And Freeman said you could have way more leaders than you can name captains, which is fair. Good point. Wonder what Goolsby thinks of that. And also Freeman talked about needing leadership that could do it all. When the team needs a spark and energy, a guy that could take charge of that. When you need to get on guys, when you need your leadership to get on other guys, go, we need to pick up the pace, or we need to get our heads clear and get our heads out of our rears, whatever it is. That's important too. And then also, you need leaders that can put their arm around a guy that's down and out or things aren't going well, motivate them to get it together and pull out of a funk. Like, I liked how Freeman mentioned multiple different areas of leadership and why it's all important. From the rah-rah guy to the getting on guy's ass stuff to the a shoulder to cry on, all of that. I like it. I like it a lot. Then we move on, and he got asked about all the staff changes, and it wasn't Chad specific, but like changing personnel with the staff and the on-field staff and the recruiting staff as well. And he said, you want to succeed to the point where your guys get other good opportunities. And when you're forced to adapt when guys leave, there's an opportunity to get better and to build your program out in a more modern, different way. And I liked Freeman saying this is an opportunity for us to rethink the recruiting operation, what we could change, where the sport's going, and try and get ahead of that. I thought that was a good answer as far as how you're handling this. And again, I'm not saying Johnny Boy's a genius, but on a lot of these answers, he's nailing the narratives we've talked about and I've written about. Quarterback, having a leader emerge to where you don't have to make the choice. Talking about forced change being an opportunity to get better. All that stuff Freeman's saying, I like it. The forced change creates opportunity. Speaking about Mike Martin, he's talking about where the sport's headed, a more NFL analytical model, the recruiting and paying guys NIL and how we do all that. Good answers, pretty good answers. Goolsby will like this. He was talking about how we're going to measure these quarterbacks when you don't have a full team and you got ones and twos and threes, and who you're throwing to isn't going to be the starters. Guys are out. How you're going to measure these quarterbacks cleanly without having a full complement of teams, all the ones there and all this. He said, you can look at the process and the decision-making and kind of the vibe and the leadership and all that without focusing on just the result of a play. Was that pass incomplete or knocked down? Or, was the timing right? Did he put the ball where it's supposed to be, but the third string walk-on guy dropped it? So he talked about the ways they're going to be able to analyze how this is going without it just being the result of the play. I think that's very mature. And the only way you could do it in a spring where you're limited and you got guys out and you're going to have ones, twos, and threes, and the quarterbacks are going to have to make it work with everybody looking at process and decision-making, not necessarily that result. Another good answer, a fair answer, a good one. Stood out to me that he mentioned The wide receivers are fast, and that's going to help us be better this year. Okay, I'll believe it when I see you get behind. I'm not saying Freeman's lying, but I'll believe that that group's better when I see him behind Miami. You get behind Miami a few times, I'm all in, baby. Let's go. Let's go. Talking about the limited roster and how you compete and do all that, and our guys looking to get, move up in the depth chart with more opportunities, whatever. And he was talking about, if you're one of these players, you can't worry about how do I get in the too deep. You got to do the best you can, play the best you can in that moment, in that day. Do as good as you could do, and then let that all shake out. So he kind of said, yeah, there's opportunity, but these guys can't wake up every day thinking, how do I get in the too deep or whatever? You got to go out there, play the best you can every single day, and let the chips fall where they may. That was a good answer on that. Freeman, I didn't think about this, and Freeman brought it up. And he said in spring, you don't have like the scout teams totally out of the mix doing something different. The old Rudy line, running the opposition's play, week in and week out or whatever. You don't have that. So there are opportunities to get more good on good. It's just so many limitations with the injury recoveries and everything else you got to navigate to get there. So I think that was pretty interesting. But he was like, you just got to go play your game and focus on what you're doing today to be the best you could be today. And I get that. So overall, I can't really think of anything Freeman answered that was a red flag to me, or that I hated, or I wanted him in my mind to address it a different way. Let's be realistic. A lot of these questions, anybody doing content or media has been asking these questions since the Ohio State game ended. And I had a pretty good idea of how I thought he should have answered it. And he did. He answered it the way I wanted him to answer almost every question. So I thought it was a pretty good, competent showing by Freeman amid some honestly tough spring dynamics, man. Tough with that recruiting operation and having to build it out. Coaching changes on the staff. So many guys out for spring. So many moving parts. I think he did a good job of trying to tie it all together. I don't know what else anybody else could have expected of the guy up there today. So I thought Freeman did a pretty good job there with that. And we're going to see as the competition heats up, and we'll start getting clips from the quarterback competition and whatever else. And so we'll keep you updated on this. And me and Michael record the patrons from live remotes, one from Florida, one from a hotel in Nebraska. And we'll keep you updated. Don't forget to check out the merchandise. The link is in the description. You can browse and carouse all the different Always Irish gear. Make sure you head over there and get something for the next tailgate. Thanks for being here.